Okay, check out those curves. Before I explain them and show you these curves, do me a favor. If you're not subscribed to my channel, what are you waiting for? Click subscribe, click the notification link. I'd love for you to be one of my lucky winners. All right, so just to give you a brief history of my life, I was an educator for 18 years in the classroom. I substitute taught. I was a property flipper. I had done various forms of business, some successful, some unsuccessful. Even as a kid, being in a latchkey home, I would sell avocados from door to door. I lived with my mom. She worked full time, and I had an older sister. So things were tough for us when we were a kid, and financially things were very tough, but the Lord always provided, and I'm very grateful for that. Now, going into life, I later on got my degree. I went into teaching for a little while, which is interesting. I never thought I would do that. But I hit an area where I was teaching, and at one point I was teaching math and science in a junior high school, and then I got offered to take some classes through UCLA and get my math credential, which I went ahead and did. Later on, I was asked to teach the UCLA math extension courses. I was invited to team teach and to teach a few courses and seminars that I was doing. I was like, wow, I'm actually teaching college classes. 2009 hit. It was a financial devastation for me. I mean, in 2008, I was looking at buying a Mercedes in cash. 2010, I was signing bankruptcy papers. I mean, that's what a difference of a year or a couple years can make. Now, I say this because I stayed in the classroom, I stayed in teaching, and I thought everything was fine. So in 2009-10, my UCLA position ended. It killed the budget. The state of California, along with the whole country, went into like financial devastation. Hopefully you're invested in Bitcoin and some other stuff, and I've done some videos on crypto. Roth IRAs I'm a big fan of, and I'm kind of going some of those places here with this. But in 2014, I went to go do some stuff, and it was like, what have you done to grow in the last few years of your life? Was a challenging question that I got. And it's like, oh yeah, well, I used to teach UCLA extension. Well, I haven't done that in about 5 or 6 years. Well, I got my degree. Well, that was years ago. Well, I did this, and I realized for the first time in my life that, okay, so I had filed bankruptcy, I was still teaching, I was still in the classroom. Bankruptcy was a low point in my life, and then when I got out of that, I thought, okay, everything's fine, and I realized for the first time in my life, I was doing no growing. I wasn't growing at all. I was stagnant. I was staying right where I was. It was like, wow, what am I doing, and why am I not growing, and why am I not moving? And I'm not achieving the goals and dreams that I want to achieve. One of the things, and there's a lot of powerful books that I read, and I try to read every single day. So up until recently, I was reading, and then I got involved in Audible, which I love Audible. It's great. And then recently I had to read a book, and this is a book I would highly recommend. It's called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, one of the favorite books I've read. In this book, out of the many things I could tell you, and I'm going to show you a demonstration of curves up on the board here in a second, but in this book, he talks about taking responsibility, about growing, and about growing every single day, which I'm told, and that sounds like a no-brainer, but how many of us are growing each and every single day? And in 2014, I realized that I had to really make some major changes in my life to get where I wanted to be at. And I was also doing many things at once. Was it a safety call? Was I afraid of growth? Was I afraid of success? I don't know. One of the things that he does in this book, and I would so challenge you to do this in the video, and I'm going to say two things. I'm going to challenge you to look at the floor for a minute and look at the ceiling. But before you do that, okay, when I tell you to do this, pause it. Look at the floor for 5 minutes. I put a timer on my phone, and I looked at the floor for 5 minutes. Go ahead and put a timer on, pause me, and do that now. Okay, hopefully you did that, and hopefully you did the 5-minute exercise there. If not, pause it and do it now. I really encourage you to. This was very powerful in my life, even recently. Okay. Now, after that, what I'd like you to do is to pause this video and look at the floor and think about your life for 5 minutes. For 5 minutes, just think about your life. Okay, if you haven't paused me, go ahead and do that now. Just hit the pause, set a timer. I just put it on my phone, and go and think about your life for 5 minutes. When you're done, and hopefully you've done this, I'd like you to then reset your timer for 1 minute, pause me again, and walk around the room for a minute, and then sit back down. And then what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to go ahead and do the exercise again, but this time look up at the ceiling. So what I want you to do is you're going to think about your life, and you're going to pause me and look at the ceiling for 5 minutes. Okay, in the book, Olson describes, and this was definitely me, that most of the people that looked down at the ceiling for 5 minutes thought of many areas in their life, including regrets, past regrets, and things in their past that they hated. And when they looked at the ceiling, you're looking at, and this was definitely, I fell in this category 100%, You're looking at the future and what's happening in the future and what your focus point is. So in 2014, there's an analogy I read recently, and it wasn't in this book. It was in another analogy that I read. And that is, there's a plane that's headed from the United States to Japan, and it's going through a storm, and they lose every single instrument on the plane. Their navigation, their instruments, everything in the plane breaks. All they have is they have the power, and they're able to change direction and speed, but they're going. And the captain gets on the intercom and he says, "Folks, I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is we're making record timing, going faster than we've ever gone before. Bad news is I have no idea where we're at and which direction we're going." I say that because that was my life. Like I was just teaching, and I've seen so many people, and by all means, I have some great teachers. I have some great teacher friends, people that are still teaching that I have an utmost respect for. Good ones, bad ones, retired ones, utmost respect. And it's a job that I think should make more than any other job, because it tends to be the job that we overlook, which is beside the point. The question I had to ask myself is, did I want to do this for the rest of my life? And the answer was no, I did not, okay? And I had to get to the point where, and you've heard me say this on previous YouTube videos, I had to get to the point where I decided to go off and I worked for myself. And I played it safe. I took a leave of absence when I first left. Now, the hard part about this was people around me were not supportive at all. And you've got to surround yourself with people that you want to be like, that you see doing, because there's people that are going to take action and there's people that are going to just sit by. Now, I've had people come into surplus funds, and I've had people do very well with it. And they always say, okay, should I quit my job? And I'm like, not yet, because I have to decide what type of person you are and if you're an action taker. Now, I've had people leave their jobs. I've had people transitions. I've had people make good money. I have people do a side hustle. I have people that are making 50 grand a year. I have people that are making over 100,000 a year. I have It goes from every site and every angle. But for me, when I left the job, and you probably heard me say this, at one point I had to tell my mom. My mom kept on talking about me going back into the classroom. And I just said, okay, Mom, this is not the area of navigation in my life that I want to go toward. I want you part of my life. I mean, she was huge in my life, very special. If you want me to include you in my direction in life, I need you to realize that I've left this profession. I don't plan to go back, and I hope not to go back. And I actually had to tell that. Meanwhile, it was very scary. I mean, you get this secure money every single month, you have great benefits, and you get a decent retirement if you're teaching in California. That all is decent, okay? So I've got this, and I have this all. The last time I taught, I called a math teacher in my department, and his words to me were, I've got 5 more years. I can't wait till I retire. I can't wait to get out of this school. I'm done. I hate it here. I want to get out. And I'm just like, wow, so, and I've heard that time and time again. And it's like, wow, I mean, misery at its finest. And it's hard because we're supposed to be bringing positive happiness, energy to our students. And yet, and again, that's all beside. So I realized that my life was stagnant. Now I'm going to switch places here. Basically in his book, what he goes over, and he talks about the easy to do, which is, I have sloppy writing here, and the easy not to do. And it's both. But he talks about progress, life, goals. 5% of people actually go in the easy to do. They're the workers. They take responsibility. They take this. And 95% of the people. So these are my 2 curves. Check out the curves. You've got an upper curve, and you've got a lower curve there, okay? And I'm going to talk about this right now. So you've got an upper curve, and you've got a lower curve. And I hope you could see this. I hope you could see what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna go back to my desk here. So you have the upper curve and you have the lower curve. 5% of the people who retire in their elderly years are financially independent. And I think of my grandmother. She just passed in February of 2021. She was 95 years old, and she had a lot of spunk and kick to her all the way up until the end. And like about 92, 93, the family was like, okay, we're taking away your license. And she's like, no, but I'd feel safer at Magic Mountain without a seatbelt on than I was in the car with her. God bless her, But great woman, incredible. Very few people end up in like her position. And I see what she did as a kid. Now, my grandfather worked. He was a worker, and they paid off their house. They bought it in the 60s for $40,000. It sold as a fixer for $600,000. I was out of the area of where she was, but it sold for fixer for just under $600,000. They had it paid for cash. They saved their money. They bought bonds when they were when they were younger. And very few people do that. Very few people look at the future. They always think, okay, tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. And it's like, even my father-in-law, I look at him and, you know, he was real big on Roth IRAs and he had 2 of them. And when he passed, which was real recent, he, each one of those was worth a very decent amount. And I've seen other people that I've seen with Roth IRAs and other building savings, and they have crypto Roth, they have, Bitcoin Roth, they have all sorts of different areas where you could be investing. A savings account is good, something else is good, but something that you're not going to dip into that you can invest, that's going to be there long term. Silver, gold, those kind of things are also good to invest in. And I think that's good. But let's go back to the purpose of this video. Like there is no, for me, into the teaching realm that I just got into, that I was just telling you about, and me in 2014, I was sinking. I was on that 95% easy not to do. I was doing nothing. Yes, I thought I was growing. I was waking up every day. I was going to work. I was married to, I still am, to an incredible woman. I've got 2 great kids. They're very young, as you know, but I've got 2 small kids, and I'm very happy where I'm at in life. But I say this because, you know, I thought I was growing in life, and I was in areas of my life, but career-wise, I was very stagnant, and I was just sitting there. And it's like, wow, and what do I really want to do? Well, I really want to work for myself, and I really want to be able to have my own business. Well, what am I doing to make that happen, and how am I going to be able to make that happen and do that within others and leave the classroom? And when I left the classroom, I lost my benefits, which I have to now pay for. Interest rates dropped significantly. We went to go refinance the house. I was told that I had to wait 2 years, which I waited for, and I was able to do a refi. It was a lot harder. You go out and you apply for something, it's like, oh, you're self-employed. Yeah, well, have you been self-employed for 2 years? No, but I make more than I was teaching. Well, come see us after 2 years, or come see us when you establish credit. And it's like, it puts you almost like in 2010, I filed bankruptcy. And in 2011, I went to a really cool event just before I got married in Colorado. And I had such bad credit that my credit card company canceled me without me knowing it. So I fly there to go pick up the rent-a-car. I go and she's like, sir, your card's been declined. I'm like, okay, this is my card that has no balance on it. So I actually call and they say, well, we canceled you because of this. So I tell the rent-a-car lady, true story here, just low point in my life. And she says to me, well, we can't help you. I go, I have cash, but I doubt you could take that. She said, no, we can't. They take me back to the Denver airport and they leave me there. And I'm sitting there and it's like 11 o'clock at night and nobody's out there. It's completely like a ghost town. And I'm sitting on the bench. I said a prayer and I thought, wow, I might spend the night out here and figure where to go in the morning. I'll have to bus it. And where I was going was about an hour and a half away. And I had a transportation opportunity, but that night, what was I going to do? And all of a sudden, a Marriott van pulled up and he said to me, are you staying at the Marriott? And I said, I don't have a reservation. Do you have and he goes, well, we're full. He goes, I know a place that'll take you. I mean, this was a godsend. So I got in the van, took me to a local, like it was something like a Motel 6 or equivalent or something like that, you know, and I actually ended up staying there for the night. Low point in my life. I mean, I couldn't even rent a car, you know, and it was just like, wow. And that was in 2011. So I get out of that, you know, in 2012, I flipped a house and I was, which my first house since then, but even then it took me a while to reestablish myself. I had to reestablish myself and get myself going and exactly what I was able to do. So going back to this whole story and where we are you in the 5%? Are you in the 95%? And I'm going to say, like, I talked about my family and I talked about my mother, who's great and I love very much, and she's very supportive now of my business, but I had to set that boundary. I had to say, okay, you're going to have to understand this is the old me, this is the new me. It's like looking at the ceiling, okay? And when I looked at the ceiling, I'm able to look at my future. What do I want? What is my mission? What do I want to accomplish? Now, one thing I appreciate about the Slight Edge, and I'm going to pretty much end it with this, okay? But with the Slight Edge, one of the coolest things about the book that I really enjoy and that I really like is that he talks about taking small steps at a time. Like when people call me in Warriors, and I have this all the time, and I love everyone in the community. They call me and they say, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to do this. I'm going to make 20,000. And okay, well, all those are achievable, but sometimes like there might be a hiccup and their first claim they might not be able to get, and they might get their second or third claim. What if that happens? Like, for an example is, I had a claim in California one time that had an IRS lien, and it came at the very last minute, and boom, they swept up the entire $25,000. It happens. Not all the time, but it does happen. What if there's litigation with the claim and you still get the claim, but instead of it being 4 months or 4 weeks, I just had someone make a check in 2 weeks. It happens all the time. But what if it's 6 months? Okay, you've just quit your job. Can you afford to go 6 months? And I say that because I have claims out there right now, and I have one that's been out there since July. It looks like it's getting paid out just fine. It'll be about a $4,000 commission, but again, I've had to wait several months for it. Okay, and it's one of my smaller claims. It's going to be really nice, but those kind of things happen. So I say that because you're making this drastic change, and you're used to life one way, and all of a sudden you're trying to. I always like saying you're on this side of the bridge and you're trying to get to this side and there's too big of a gap in the middle, okay? You have to make change slowly and incrementally. You've got to make it so, like, if you're looking at the business, like surplus funds, maybe start off by making a couple calls a day. Some people can't even make a call, so make 1 call a day. Do that every day and then start making 2 calls a day. Get your list. Start looking at your organization. Find out the rules of your area and start working at this and start surrounding yourself with other entrepreneurs. Don't hang around the main crowd. When you work your own business and they hear you on the phone in break time or something, or you're on the phone clearing something up and everyone's at a table and you sit down at the table and say, hey guys, what's up? Everyone gets quiet. It's like, okay, he's here. Let's change the subject. And it's like, okay, guys, wow, what's going on? And someone might ask, well, how's business? But, it's a whole different world. And I get it, 100%, man. You're at a different level in your life, and people just don't know how to react to that. And what's interesting is I've had so many people tell me that it can't be done, yet they themselves want to do it. And you've got to surround yourself with people that are focusing at that ceiling, at that level.